beginning of human history, clothing came directly from survival. Hunters did not waste what they caught. The hide of an animal was carefully stripped, dried, and worn across the body. These hides gave protection against biting cold winds and sharp branches of the forest. The first clothing was not about fashion. It was armor against nature. A second skin that allowed early humans to explore the wilderness and endure life in harsh conditions. Inside the dark shelters of caves, women worked with patience and creativity. Using sharpened bone needles and threads made from twisted plant fibers, they stitched hides together into something more than rags. This was the birth of handmade tailoring. Around the glow of firelight, early humans were not just surviving. They were inventing, creating garments that kept them warm, and also showed the first sparks of human craftsmanship and imagination. As night fell and the cold grew fierce, fire became the heart of family life. Wrapped in fur clothing, parents and children sat together around the flames. The thick skins of animals provided insulation while the fire gave warmth and safety. In these simple gatherings, we see the beginnings of culture. Families surviving, bonding, and passing down the knowledge that clothing, along with fire, was essential for the survival of humankind. For hunters, clothing was more than just protection. It carried meaning. Teeth, claws, and bones from the animals they killed were strung together to form necklaces. Each piece was a trophy, a story of survival, a sign of bravery. Wearing such ornaments showed strength and leadership. It was the beginning of fashion mixed with identity, where decoration expressed who you were and what you had accomplished in life. Not every decoration was fierce. Some came from peace and beauty. Women crafted crowns out of flowers and fresh leaves, symbols of joy and harmony with nature. These natural ornaments might have been worn during special days, rituals, or simply as expressions of happiness. It reminds us that even in the harsh prehistoric world, humans had a deep appreciation for beauty, creativity, and the power of self-expression through clothing and adornment. Along riverbanks and shorelines, shells and smooth stones were gathered and turned into ornaments. A simple stone became a bracelet, a seashell became a necklace. Young girls and women wore them with pride. These items were not only beautiful but also carried meaning, perhaps symbols of belonging to a group or signs of love and exchange. In these ornaments, we see the roots of jewelry and personal identity taking shape. Before battle, warriors decorated their bodies with paint made from plants, clay, and crushed minerals. Stripes of red, white, or black turned a man into a living symbol of courage. Body paint was not just for appearance, it carried spiritual meaning. It could inspire bravery, strike fear in enemies, or mark special tribal roles. In these painted bodies, we witness the earliest forms of symbolic clothing protection not by hide, but by identity. Even children wore clothing made from furs and hides. Small garments kept them warm while they played freely in the open fields and forests. The sight of children laughing in animal skin outfits shows that clothing was not only for survival. It also allowed a community to live, grow, and thrive. Each stitch of fur carried love, care, and the hope of parents who worked hard to protect their young ones. In tribal life, clothing was a shared responsibility. Men and women worked together to prepare hides, scraping off fat, drying the skins, and cutting them into usable pieces. Once ready, these hides were sewn into tunics, cloaks, and boots. This collective effort not only kept the tribe clothed, but also strengthened social bonds. Clothing was more than fabric. It was community, teamwork, and the foundation of human society. On the walls of caves, prehistoric artists left us their stories. Among the hunters and animals, we can see figures wearing fur clothing and decorated with ornaments. These drawings prove that humans saw clothing as part of their identity, something worth recording for future generations. Through these ancient paintings, we catch a glimpse of how clothing shaped culture and became a part of humanity's earliest self-expression. The role of a mother was timeless: protect her children. In the prehistoric world, mothers carefully dressed their young in furs, making sure no cold could reach their small bodies. Clothing was more than survival. It was love stitched into every garment. In these small, tender moments, we see how clothing became not just a tool of protection, but also an expression of care, sacrifice, and family. Every tribe had its leaders, and leaders needed to stand apart. Their clothing and ornaments marked their position. A crown of bones and feathers, a staff in hand. These symbols showed authority and respect. The leader's appearance inspired unity and confidence. Through such decorated figures, we see how clothing evolved beyond survival into a language of power, leadership, and status among early humans. After a hunt, every part of the animal had purpose. Meat became food, bones became tools, and the hides were carefully stretched and dried to make clothing. Nothing was wasted. This careful preparation of hides was the heart of prehistoric fashion, turning raw materials into garments. It shows us how deeply humans respected nature, using every gift it provided to survive and flourish. Plant fibers were twisted and pulled into strong threads and ropes. These threads were the first prehistoric sewing tools, used to stitch hides together or make decorative ornaments. The skill of creating fibers was as important as hunting or fire making. With it, humans transformed loose skins into wearable clothing, proving once again that innovation was always at the heart of survival. During festivals and rituals, tribes wore their finest. Furs were decorated, bodies were painted, and crowns of flowers and bones were proudly displayed. Around the fire, they danced and sang, celebrating life, unity, and survival. These events remind us that clothing was never just practical, it was cultural. It marked the difference between ordinary days and extraordinary celebrations, giving meaning to human identity. As the sun set behind the horizon, tribes stood proudly dressed in the creations of nature. Furs, jewelry, and paint all reflected their resilience and creativity. These garments told the story of survival and identity. Clothing, once born from necessity, had become culture, a mark of human progress. In their silhouettes against the golden sky, we witness not only the beauty of the past, but the very dawn of civilization itself.